Fill me in if I don't. And if you are old-timers and you have relatives that are up in years that have some history of the Lincoln Highway, Bev and I would most certainly appreciate hearing that. We enjoy hearing the stories.
Today we think nothing about hopping in our cars and heading down the highway to visit a relative, go to the beach, or maybe even take a trip.
Sorry, that's okay.
Keep my hands off the keyboard.
I am a retired teacher in South Bend Schools, taught for 34 years, 4th grade, and at that time, because I retired in 2002, 4th grade was mandated to teach and read history. I do not know, and I'm not entering any school to find out today, that our 4th graders are learning. And I'm sure there aren't, if any, questions on the state test about Indiana history. So I feel very sincerely upset about that. My kids enjoy 4th grade. I meet them a lot in my Martin's grocery store in South Bend. They see my name on my check. Mrs. Chambers, oh, the Little Hoosiers Club. Walking at 3 o'clock in the morning, standing guard at Old Fort Wayne, because I took them on so many field trips. With me, I have a very good friend, Bev Gillespie, also a retired teacher from South Bend Schools. She joined in 2005 with Lincoln Highway. I joined in 2004. So they caught some old retired teachers. But we all have a love for the highway. Bev and her husband were, and she is still involved with car clubs. She went last summer to the conference in South Carolina for their car club. So I'm very happy to have her. And we work together on a lot of projects for the Lincoln Highway Association. And as you will learn in our DVD, Lincoln Highway Association serves 13 states. And each state has its own chapter. Each state chapter, has a state director. And lo and behold, I'm Indiana state director. And I cracked the whip, being a former teacher. And Jennifer said, she took the mic off, it wasn't working right. So she said, I know, being my cousin, that I have a teacher voice. So I will try not to use that. My voice is getting hoarsely because I do have bronchitis, and tis the season for that. So we do welcome you again to our program. And let's us remember the phrase that we used this past June at our National Lincoln Highway Conference from Ralph Waldo Emerson. The journey is the destination. So let's take a fantastic journey on our Lincoln Highway.
Look at the amusement park. Our highway system in the United States can take us just about anywhere we wish to go. That wasn't the case, however, for people who lived 100 years ago. In the early 1900s, the roads between cities were not good roads if they were there at all. Very few people actually owned one of the brand new motor cars. And even for those who could afford a car, the only roads that were good enough to drive on were in the cities, not outside, heading to other towns.
The early automobiles were used almost entirely in town. The people who tried to take trips, and there were stubborn people who did just to prove it, they had enormous trouble with flat tires. Their diary showed they would have 2 or 3 flat tires a day. They would get stuck in mud holes. They would get lost because the roads weren't marked very well. So a long trip by car was a great adventure.
One of the first people to own an automobile in Indianapolis, Indiana, was a businessman by the name of Carl Fisher, and he started the first automobile dealership to sell cars in Indianapolis. In 1909, Mr. Fisher created a large oval track in the city to develop and test new automobiles. 2 years later, he started an annual 500-mile automobile race on that track to create more public interest in automobiles. This race is still being held every year. It's known as the Indianapolis 500. Carl Fisher wanted to sell cars, but he also knew that buying one just for driving around in town wasn't a practical reason. He also knew that if people wanted to travel to another town, they had to take a train. Trains, however, didn't always go where the people wanted to go and when they wanted to go. Buying a car would give them that freedom, but unfortunately, the bad roads of America could not. So, in 1912, Fisher and some friends in the automobile industry began an organized effort to create a practical highway that would connect the east and west coast of the United States. Fisher estimated it would cost about $10 million, and within a month, Fisher's friends, including former U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, then current President Woodrow Wilson, and the inventor of the light bulb, Thomas Edison, each had pledged $1 million, and the dream of building a great rock highway from coast to coast was becoming real. Fisher also asked another friend, Henry Ford, to be in charge of this massive project. They decided the first thing that the highway needed was a name.
Henry Joy
Roy was president of Packard, which was a very large automobile company in Detroit. His father worked for the railroads in Illinois, and Packard actually gave Abraham Lincoln his first railroad business cases. Actually, that's how Lincoln became an established lawyer in Illinois, was his successful work with the railroads.
In 1913, the Lincoln Highway Association was formed, with Henry Joy as the president, and work immediately began on choosing the best route for the road and raising the rest of the money to pay for it. The Lincoln Highway Association wanted the shortest and straightest route from New York City to San Francisco. Because there were already many roads east of the Mississippi River, choosing a path there was somewhat easy. Heading west, however, was much more difficult since there were far fewer towns and far fewer roads. To select the western path and advertise the future Lincoln Highway, a trailblazer tour set out from Indianapolis on July 1st, 1913, with 17 cars, 2 trucks, and reporters from several major newspapers. For more than a month, they traveled through mud holes, deserts, hills, and valleys. Every town along the way enthusiastically greeted them, hoping to be chosen as one of the cities that the great highway would pass through. On Halloween Day of 1913, the official route was announced, and parades and celebrations were held in hundreds of cities in the 13 states along the route. The headline of the South Bend Tribune read, "The Lincoln Highway across 13 states. Indiana will be traversed by National Road." The September 13th edition listed the towns in Indiana that would be on the original route, including Fort Wayne, Goshen, Mishawaka, South Bend, New Carlisle, and Valparaiso. The first officially recorded mileage for the entire Lincoln Highway was 3,389 miles. Even though the Lincoln Highway was officially dedicated in 1913, it was still quite an adventure. When brave drivers traveled along in the very beginning, it was still far from the modern highways we have today. It wasn't much more than a lot of older roads and a few newer ones loosely connected by a map. Because of this, there were places where you could drive for hundreds of miles without seeing any towns. The early travelers of the Lincoln Highway would have to take along plenty of food for those trips, and they needed a tent to camp along the side of the road when it got dark. According to the official road guide, a trip from the Atlantic to the Pacific on the Lincoln Highway might take 20 to 30 days. To make it in 30 days, the motorists would need to average 18 miles an hour for 6 hours per day, and driving was only done during daylight hours. The guide also recommended taking along chains, a shovel, an axe, jacks, extra tires and inner tubes, and tools. It also cautioned travelers, don't wear new shoes.
The Lincoln Highway Association didn't have much money. They didn't build roads themselves. They simply marked the roads that were already there to show what the route was for people who wanted to go from coast to coast on the Lincoln Highway.
In 1914, the association began sponsoring seedling miles, short sections of well-constructed roads built to show communities how attractive a well-built road could be. The association hired 17 construction experts to design a superior road to the future, with 4 lanes of concrete, sidewalks, and electric lights. A highway that could handle traffic up to 20 years in the future. This 1 3/10 mile road, named the Ideal Section, was built between Dyer and Cherryville, Indiana in 1922 and 23, and was built so well it was being traveled on until 1997, 54 years longer than its original goal. Besides sponsoring a few seedling miles, the association did very little to actually construct the road. Most of the association's money and effort went into advertising the benefits of building the road, as well as encouraging Americans to travel it. Starting with the newspaper reporters on the Trailblazers tour, the national and local press continued to keep the country informed and excited about the new road. In fact, a group of school children in Alaska heard about the project and sent a donation of 14 cents they collected to help build the highway. Over the years, the Lincoln Highway became one of the most famous roads of all time. Eventually, the promises of the Lincoln Highway Association became true. Many more people began driving cars across the country, and many small businesses were created along the way to supply them with necessary things like food and gas, and to tempt them with extra goodies like snacks and souvenirs.
Now, of course, people had been traveling through here on long trips for many, many years, but on the train, all they did was look out the window. When they were driving through, they had to stop, they had to eat, they had to buy gasoline, they had to have a place to sleep at night. And so, in that sense, it did improve local business.
As hundreds of new small businesses opened across the highway, the cities and towns became bigger as well. Some of the gas stations, motels, and restaurants that opened way back then are still around today. Due to the overwhelming success of the Lincoln Highway, more highways began springing up all over the country. By 1925, there were more than 250 national auto trails. By the end of the 1920s, most of the dream of the Lincoln Highway Association was completed.
The Lincoln Highway was a wonderful idea at its time. It began improving roads when very few other people cared. It was a success, and it was so successful that after a few years it wasn't necessary anymore.
Since the government was now building good highways, the job of the association was complete and it disbanded. The last major promotional activity of the Lincoln Highway Association took place on September 1st, 1928, when groups of Boy Scouts placed approximately 2,400 concrete markers at sites all along the highway. Each concrete post carried the Lincoln Highway insignia and directional arrow, a bronze medallion with Lincoln's face, and stated, "This highway dedicated to Abraham Lincoln."
The rebirth of the Lincoln Highway Association occurred in 1993 with the idea of preserving what remains of the Lincoln Highway and trying to bring attention to the remaining road so it was not forgotten in transportation history. I think when you're studying history or when you're learning about your country's history, it's important to have some of the pieces still there to experience. But when you get off the interstate and you get on an original section of the Lincoln Highway, you see the beauty and the differences across America.
The Lincoln Highway started out as a dream of a small group of people to give Americans the possibility of traveling across the country in their cars. And so, not only can we drive from one side of the United States to the other easily and safely, we can also enjoy getting to know our country and our fellow citizens as we do so.
We have many people to thank for that. It took a lot of time to read that, and for some reason they talk fast. But it's a 12-minute DVD, and for children particularly, because this is a resource kit, part of the resource kit that my curriculum team put together in 2009. We have 13 kits traveling on wheels, canvas container on wheels, so teachers can transport that easier. And now we, just a few years ago, we put it on our website, so teachers can whip in and not worry about loading kits. But we have 13 kits spread out along our Lincoln Highway, 1913 route. Bev has one in her garage, I have one in my home. We have them in museums and so forth. So if you're interested in looking at the whole entire kit, we started with Jan Schubert-Eric, who's one of the narrators, said, Joyce, now that you're retired, we need a curriculum unit for grades 3 and 4. You'd be perfect for that. One unit ended up to be 5 units, 3-reading binder. So that is in the kit. We have books, adult books on Abraham Lincoln's history, children books on Abraham Lincoln. We have the game board that you saw. One of our members, Will Henry out west, has this, and I got his permission to copy it. And back in those days, it was a checkerboard, and then you flipped it over and you had the Lincoln, you had the United States map, and they used straight pins to move their markers across the highway. As soon as they got their play card, they had to name the city, and they put their straight pin on that city. Well, in making the kit and knowing our 2,000-year children, straight pins wouldn't work. Because, you know, Johnny can hit Susie. So went to IUSB Resource Center, and we made magnetic stones with magnetic backing. So we made the map into a magnetic board, and that worked so much better. So this was a general history of the Lincoln Highway. I want us to come back to our Hoosier state, Indiana, and go on to our 1913 historic route. And if you apologize, please, I need to sit more than stand. My doctor said, with my hips going the way they are, I need to sit more. So I will speak up and wave your hand if I get softer for you. Okay, I stayed up until 4:30 this morning, matching my script with the slides, so bear with me and we'll get through this. Welcome to Indiana. Indiana is the only state on the Lincoln Highway with 2 routes. The 1913 route, which is our Lincoln Way, and the 1928 route, which runs through Plymouth, as your map on your seat has shown you. Today, we'd like to be your guides on the 1913 route, beginning at the Ohio-Indiana border, where we see travelers at the highway marker in the early days. We'll start now on our journey on Old 30. And you will see that we have the road dividing. We have the Old 30 and we have the alignments as well. We enter Allen County. There are 8 counties on the 1913 route. Our first county is Allen County with the small town of Townley and Zulu. We find Zulu is an interesting name, and one story has the folks coming up with that name is a pin was stuck in a book on Africa, and the pin landed on the village of Zulu, hence Zulu, Indiana. Whatever story you want to believe, Zulu is there. There aren't many early businesses left in these two towns. So we're going to go on down the road to Bashanka, where we have our St. Louis Bashankan Church in the background on the first slide, and the interior of the church. And they just finished renovating the entire building, inside and out. And Bev and I, we need to take another trip to see it. We have not seen it since they renovated it, but I hear it's just beautiful. It was beautiful to begin with, but they have really renovated it better. So the church itself, and then if you get on, if you can see on the first slide, this is the 30 that we would follow in. The road to the left is the old alignment, which went in front of the, and I get my years mixed up, so bear with me, the 1892 schoolhouse. Excuse me. And then as you go on, there is a cemetery before returning back onto the old US Highway 30. We go on into New Haven, where we find an Lincoln Highway plaque on the front of the City Hall, and a new LH planter made from wind turbines, which I have not seen personally. So Bev and I are taking an adventure trip. Anyone wants to join us, we'll let you know the date, and we'll make our own trip. Fort Wayne. We love Fort Wayne. Staying on Lincoln Highway, we enter Fort Wayne through an arch in the early days. Many cities hope to have arches like this, but that didn't happen, South Bend being one. Last year, the 5-point spin at the roundabout was built. If you want a good meal, try Cindy's Diner with your slogan, "We can serve the whole world, 15 at a time." Then to walk off your meal, visit the Fort Wayne Visitor Center, where you'll see a Lincoln Highway concrete post that you saw on the DVD marker, and one of 5 sites for the Indiana Lincoln Highway Control Station banner placed in 2023. Does anyone know the purpose of a control station? Because I'll be using that term throughout the talk. Anyone have an idea what it could be? Okay, control station was a landmark in the towns, such as a hotel, a gas station, a bank, a post office, where drivers would reset their odometers to 0 before departing to the next town or next control station. So it's a very important part on the traveling part. And when you get out west, we've had conferences out west, and we had a caravan of 25 cars, and it was 2013. My new car was just a week old and collecting all the dust that you saw in the DVD. And they said, don't wash your car before you come in. They wanted to see how much dust was on our cars. But driving that caravan and bringing up the rear, and one of the guys had a trailer he was pulling. The trailer had a flat, so I said, I'll stay back with him and help him with it. We started out and started back up again. I forgot to reset my odometer. And out west, the roads aren't muddy and crackly like we saw, but they are dust and gravel. And I went straight, and I looked back, and he was flicking his lights at me, and that told me, oh, I should have turned left back there. But the cars ahead of us had gone so far ahead that I lost their dust, and I was following their dust behind them. So when we met at the next rest stop, I chewed them out. I said, don't ever do that again. You left us behind, and you're my trailer to follow. But we made it okay. But beware. The control stations are very helpful. And as we know, the Lincoln Highway would have followed many of our native trails. such as the Potawatomi Miami Trail and the Sauk Trail. And the one on the left are the newest ones being set up. It's very
Elkhart
nice.
County.
Yeah, Elkhart County, yes, thank you. We come into Whitley County, where we see the control station signs that you would have seen on the front of, such as the Cherubusco Garage. And that would tell the travelers that they are the control center and they better reset their odometer. Or also they can report any concerns or problems on the road to the owner of the establishment.
Control station signs on the a vertical post there
Thank
between
you.
the two
Yes.
groups of people.
Also, while you're in Cherubusco, if you want another good meal, hamburgers are delicious here. The Magic Wand Restaurant. And we can see the truss bridge on the alignment. And then we get back on 30. Coming into Noble County, where we find the little town of Miriam. I don't know if that was with, I was with someone. And I just happened to look behind on my shoulder and I saw this abandoned, almost down, 2-room schoolhouse. Back in the day, we always hear 1-room schoolhouse, but this one had 2-room. And as you say, it is in bad shape, and at that time, I thought it was going to fall down that day. So I have not been back to check on it. I need to check on my people in Noble County to see if they know anything. Also in Miriam, we had a citizen of Miriam, Samuel Watson. I need to refer to my notes now, excuse me. Samuel Wilson, excuse me. From Troy, New York. And he provided the American troops in the War of 1812 with barrels, meal barrels, excuse me, marked U.S., which the soldiers turned it into the nickname for him, Uncle Sam Wilson. The Wilsons moved to Miriam in the mid-1800s, and there was confusion if Uncle Sam is truly buried in Miriam or back in Troy, New York. It is still a mystery. But they figured, yeah, he was born in Troy, but Miriam raised him. And that's how I kind of feel with Indiana. We raised Abraham Lincoln from ages 7 to 21. And I kept telling my students that, and they enjoyed that story. Born in Kentucky, my husband was from Kentucky. Raised in Indiana. And then, of course, Springfield got him, and he went on. But I still feel that Indiana, his humor, his goofiness, walking the ceiling, all of those stories are from us raising him. So keep that in mind, please. Wolf Lake, we find Dr. Lucky, Dr. James Edward Lucky, and the family lived in Wolf Lake with their house on the lot where he built his Lucky Hospital, which until about 5 years ago, it was being sold. Dr. Lucky was also an LH consul. What is a consul? We talked about control stations. What purpose was a person being the consul on the highway? Consul, C-O-N-S-U-L. Anyone? I'm a former teacher. I want come on, children. Consul. All right. It was mainly a gentleman. He could be a banker. He could be a doctor. He could be a store owner. He could be the post office postmaster or mistress. But travelers would report to them And they in turn would turn concerns into the Detroit office. Because remember, Henry Joy, Packard president, was very much involved with the naming of Lincoln Highway. And his office, Henry Joy's office, was in Detroit. So the advice from the office would come back to the consul. He would share it with the community, with the travelers, any announcements that need to be made, and so forth. So the consul in the counties were very important. And there could be more than one in a community. But as far as we know, again, that's on a trip to solve the mystery of the Lucky Hospital. It's been sold, has been torn down. Did someone buy it? What are they doing with the property? It's come to Kimmel, where we have a small community, but it is known for the Kimmel House, built in 1876. It is still a bed and breakfast, and when we were there, our last trip, they have a tea room, which is very nice, a gift shop, showing Hoosier hospitality. It's very nice place. And in the back, they do have what they call a guest house. They have fixed up a building in the back and really made it an elaborate guest house for people to stay if you don't want to stay within the inn itself. We come to the town of Ligonier. This is a booming town. They've been busy. It has the only original brick section in Indiana. It's an alignment to the side of 30 as you bring it in. I'm sorry, 33. There we go. That's why we built US 30 down in Plymouth, straighter road. We wouldn't have to mix up all the lanes of the highways. But as we drove through in June, taking this on our bus tours for our conference, the lady and her grandfather, family members, live on this section of the brick road, and they were out mowing it, and she stopped and talked to us and said, oh yes, we manage this whole thing. They take care of it. They really love that section of the road, and they love to see folks like us come through. So if you're ever down through Ligonier, pull over, you'll see it, and it comes back on to 33 there.
That's before you get to West Noble High School, West Noble Schools.
Thank you. Ralph speaks up. Ralph is one of our favorite members of Indiana Lincoln. So we always enjoy it. In Ligonier, they have a modern control station. As you can see, last year, Jeff Blair is standing here. He is our president of the Indiana Lincoln Highway Association, but he's retiring this year. But he is explaining the control station banners. We had 5 of these made to place in visitor centers, museums, and so forth. And I'll explain that as we go further. But it just explains, like Ligonier area. At the bottom, you can see photo images of sites that you would see in Ligonier in the old days. And just the top part is just the history of Ligonier and control station, the Lincoln Highway route across the United States.
You were going to say something
There.
before I flip this.
That's all right, I'm sorry, yes. Okay. One can still find in Ligonier ghost signs, as well as on many communities on the Lincoln Highway. Can anyone explain what a ghost sign is? As the first slide is showing you. On the side of buildings, if you see a sign like, as you can read, what you can read of it, Rio Cars. So what does that tell you? I'm sorry? Speak up.
Old.
They sold Rio cars?
No, old.
Old, okay. They're old.
Well,
it looks like it's in the tricolor banner of the Lincoln Highway too, so they're trying to tap into that marketing.
Thank you. All right. Any other?
Fading signs of the past.
Signs of the past, thank you. That's a good definition of it, thank you. Well, on our June conference, Bev and I just looked at each other and said, where's that sign? When I go to Ligonier, I love, the first time I saw that, Jan in the DVD was the one that told me and explained what ghost signs were when I first joined. And I was amazed how many I've seen since. And this one just stood out in Ligonier. In June, we couldn't see it. So they painted over it. I don't know. So again, our next sightseeing tour, we're going to check that out. But they have continued their artistic ability of being called the City of Murals. And you will see on the side of many of their buildings a whole wall of beautifully artistically drawn murals. So Ligonier, the City of Murals. So take a very good look, each side street, each alley, each driveway, any side building, you can see these murals, beautifully done. One beautiful save of history is found in Benton, in Elkhart County, of the Benton log cabin camps, as seen in these images. The left is showing what they would have looked like in the early days. The present owner is refurbishing 4 or 5 cabins left from the camp, and we could only see 4 or 5 from our bus windows. But on the right, you can see what great work Dave has done. And we have given him an award for his work on saving the cabins and the camp itself. Now we enter Goshen. In 1915, Goshen erected the entrance sign as the one pictured here, stating first-class hotel and automobile garages, 10,000 population, also listing the mileages to New York and San Francisco. And in 2017, the Indiana Lincoln Highway Association worked with the City Parks Department in Goshen through fundraising and the community, constructing this gazebo kiosk with 4 history panels telling the history of the Lincoln Highway. This is at Fiddler Pond Park, where one can enjoy the walkways around the pond. It's beautiful. I have not done it. I can't walk that far anymore, but it is just nice to sit on a bench and watch others enjoy the walkway. Or have a picnic, as we had our picnic as our bus tour in the pavilion there. Or if you're in canoeing and kayaking and pedal boats, you can rent those, as well as enjoy bank fishing. It's just a beautiful spot. So please stop by if you have not. Downtown Goshen, we see the bulletproof police booth of 1939 to protect against the gangsters who might use the Lincoln Highway. The booth first received a refurbishing. The booth just received a refurbishing, excuse me, and it's beautifully done. If you're looking for a shopping area, home of artisans and craftspeople, stop at the old bag factory, built in 1896, which served as a bagology due to the manufacturing of bags and paper products. Across the street, one can still drive over the 1896 Indiana State Bridge, where the 1919 Lincoln Highway military convoy crossed. Also in Elkhart, downtown Elkhart, we have sights to see, such as the National New York Central Railroad Museum since 1987, and the beautiful Wellfield Botanic Gardens. The first trains that arrived in Elkhart were in 1833. And the Wellfield Gardens, we had our opening reception there in June for our national conference. The folks loved it. and my son served as our bartender. The Gardens does not have an alcohol license, but we got one. And our planning committee said, well, we need a bartender. I said, my son is head bartender at Olive Garden. He'd be happy to do it. He loves his mom volunteering him. He's 50, I said, get over it. And he served that, and then his wife was, finished her job, and she came and sat and helped him at the bar. So we had just a great evening. Beautiful place. They're still doing a lot of construction, and it's right behind our mansions here. Just a beautiful spot. And my son and his wife came back 2 days later to just walk the gardens by themselves. They didn't have time while he was working. So, speaking of our national conference, Indiana Lincoln Highway Association was this year's host. We have hosted 4 conferences total through the years. And we tried to have conferences regional. So, of course, the 2 years COVID, we didn't have conference. So we had it in Joliet, Illinois. Last year we had it in Folsom, California. And this year it had to come back to the Midwest. So we said, we'll host another one. It's a lot of work. It takes 2 years in planning because everyone out west particularly can't wait to go back to Indiana. They loved our Indiana conferences. We do such a grand job. So kudos to us. But it took us 2 years, full 2 years, and up to the very night. But Hotel Elkhart and the Lerner Theater are both on Main Street and the 1913 historic Lincoln Highway. And the manager at that time, she was new at the hotel. She didn't know that it was the Lincoln Highway, the historic Lincoln Highway. Well, we sat down and gave her a history lesson. Now, let us tell you about this. And she went, really? And she left. And we got a couple new manager sits. But Hotel Elkhart was our host hotel. They just refurbished both the hotel and Lerner Theater. So those were our 2 main venues for the conference. On the left is the 1924 Lincoln Highway Guidebook, which we have on our table in the back. We had guidebooks available to travelers back then, giving a short history of the community, what businesses were there, garages, ads for the Hotel Elkhart if they wanted to stay. But it is a beautiful hotel. And at the top, rooftop bar, it was fabulous. We leave Elkhart. We reach the County Line Road, Ash Road, where we see our byway sign, bringing Lincoln Way east into the little town of Osceola. I love Osceola. And I keep looking to see if my cousin, and I didn't see her name on the sheet, Jennifer and my cousin Patricia Smith, was born and raised in Osceola. And I told Beth, we need to get her on board. We need to take her when we go through Osceola because she could fill in stories and places that we aren't even aware of or know the history of. And Patricia would. So I'm looking forward to having her do that with us. But we do find the Hinges and Handles store, which is still in service, and it is a beautiful. If you need hinges and handles, that's a place to go, I tell you. In 1895, it was the post office and a control station. Very good, thank you. But now you come to my hometown, Mishawaka. I was born in Kokomo, but was adopted and brought to Mishawaka. So it's dear to my heart. Coming into Mishawaka, we are at Lincoln Way and Capitol. We're coming in. So on the left, would be Lane Park, which is our first slide on the left. The cement area with the wall, we are having a discussion with City of Mishawaka. And one of our former Indiana group members dug and did research, and he was given, no, that can't be a remnant of the old Lincoln Highway. And we said, yes, it could be. So we are hoping to place a historical marker at Lane Park, giving the history of that, but also across Lincoln Way. How many of you remember the restaurant? Lincoln Highway Inn. Very good. Gone forever, unfortunately. But my plan is, as director, I'm going to get that done. And we've been offered a grant through the national office to get a grant to help us with that. But that's one historical marker that we definitely need to put, because there's a lot of history on this corner. Lane Park, and there's also toward the back a cemetery. A lot of the gravestones have been damaged, taken away. So I don't know how many bodies we know that are really up there, but the cemetery group has made a brand new sign. We just saw that in June, and I was very pleased to see that. But we do need to place a historical marker, because I swear that has to be Old Lincoln Highway. But we come on into town, we come by my Mishawaka High School, Bo Caveman, class of 65, Jennifer would have gone to Mishawaka as well. It's 100 years old this year. In a couple weeks, we're going to have a big 100th centennial celebration. So we're excited with this. It's a beautiful, beautiful school. And they've done a lot with it.
I'll point out they're gonna have a centennial basketball game in January.
This is Lincoln Way and Cedar Street in Mishawaka. At this corner, this was a gas station, then a crafts shop, needle crafting shop. But they thought, well, let's tear it down. And this year, they have made it the Marvin's Garden, gateway to the Riverwalk that has been being placed still along the river, connecting all of Mishawaka. I have not walked it and probably never will, but it's there. Marvin's Garden, named in honor of
Mark Wood,
who was?
basketball coach.
Thank you, Bill. He's still learning. Thank you.
I interviewed him for a report when I went to college, when I was at Notre Dame.
Oh, super. Very good. Okay. And of course, the film, The Hoosiers, was filmed, all that from Marvin Wood. So they have placed the Marvin's Garden here. Excuse me. One favorite building I know all of us recognize, but across from, we come through downtown Mishawaka. We're across from the Maine Junior High Apartments, which was my Maine Junior High school. But at least they've renovated it, using it, thank God. But this is the Studebaker dealership across from the apartments. As you see on the first slide, the decal of the Studebaker. And on the side, the west side of the building, they've had murals, and they still do. I haven't been by recently, but depicting Studebaker art, being that it was a dealership. It is now a food pantry, but still being used. And it did make the news a few years, just recently. The facade was falling down, and we were afraid that we were going to lose the decals, so that's all been taken care of, and the decals are intact, so good. Coming to Lincoln Way and Ironwood, we come into Bonnie Doon, the only Bonnie Doon left in both Mishawaka and South Bend. I have visited this quite a few times in the past few years, talking to Adam, the owner, because as you go into Bonnie Dunes here, you will see that he loves Route 66 memorabilia, pictures, and everything on the wall. I said, Adam, you're missing the boat. The bus is going to leave you. You are on the historic 1913 Lincoln Highway. You've got to get some images from us. We can provide those to you. We can provide the history of it to you. Jeff, our president, has given him an LH sign that we give store owners to place in their window, and he does have that. I had a few of my MHA scales having ice cream the other day, and I enlarged the picture, and I could see our Lincoln Highway sign in the window. So he's getting the clue. So hopefully I'll get him. Bonnie Dune, they do not serve the ice cream. The Ball Dunes retired. But we do still use ice cream from Valparaiso, which is on the 1913 route. So please don't, disregard Bonnie Dune. You don't get the Bonnie Dune ice cream, but Valparaiso ice cream is just as good. So please enjoy it. This is a project that's been dear to my heart. Lincoln Way in Ironwood. East and west terraces, if you can see. The train viaduct was built, and they placed these 3-tiered terraces on both sides of the road. And I have learned from the former city engineer of South Bend, who is a member of our Indiana Lincoln group, Joyce, that's not west side, South Bend, east side, Mishawaka. It's all South Bend. And he sent me a map showing the cutoff at where the Martins is on Ironwood coming out of River Park toward Lincoln Way. The line, because the viaduct built there, the line shows that it's all South Bend side. Mishawaka is further over a little bit. So that was good to know. But in 2009, we had one of our highway national conferences here. And I was president at that time of my Progress Club of South Bend, which is part of the General Federation of Women's Clubs. Does anyone know the history of that organization? Still growing strong today without me, because I can't travel and do all that we used to do. General Federation of Women's Clubs is an international volunteer organization, the largest of women. And it started way back in the early days, and we took a trip to Ann Arbor, Michigan Library, Bentley Library, and I found a book, a scrapbook of those pages where you posted the articles, newspaper articles on the brownish papers, and the papers are just running on the floor. And I told the librarian, I said, please digitize them. The articles, I swear, Amy Joy's secretary had the job of cutting these articles out and pasting them in Salvador. But thank God whoever did it. Because that saves articles of explaining the president of the General GFWC, we call it, coming to all the towns. They would get on the trains. They would have cars deliver them from New York to San Francisco. And the president would stand, and I just see her prim and proper. Ladies, we must follow Jen Jensen's architectural drawings of placing natural, native plants, shrubs, trees, flowers. Well, I came to my ladies' club. I said, I have an idea for us to maintain this corner. I call it the corner, both terrace, both sides. And they accepted, because in 2009 we were going to have the conference, and I said, we need to have flowers and shrubs and trees, native if we can. Well, the first year we tried it, over $1,000, they died. They don't cut native in our winter. They can't handle our winter weather. So our club gave monetarily bought flowers, planted the flowers. I had my 80-year-old members climbing up to the very top terrace. I said, Ruth, what are you doing up there? Get down. Scared me. But we have joined that we came and helped garden that area. But now my club, just a few years ago, said they health-wise and age-wise, we just couldn't maintain it any further. I said, that's okay, that's fine. Our Indiana group helped out a little bit, but maintaining it takes a lot. So I have a couple that were parents of mine at New Year's School. I had all 3 of their children, and they are helping me refurbish my house to sell. And she loves to garden. So they have done one trip over, de-weeded all of the layered terraces, and have planted flowers and so forth. So we're managing that, and it looks great. Coming in downtown South Bend, Michigan and Washington Streets, corner of where Cafe Navarre is. On the front of the Cafe Navarre, down toward the sidewalk, and he has a table and 2 chairs sitting in front of our bronze plaque. In 2009, Henry Joy IV, great-grandson of Henry Joy, Detroit, came down to Michigan. He and his family, he cried when we unveiled this bronze plaque that tells the history of Carl and Henry Joy and the history of Lincoln Highway. But it's just too bad that we just couldn't get permission or whatever to raise it higher. So next time you're going into Cafe Navarre, the plaque is to the left, down. It's beautifully stated. Across the street on the corner, if you're going over to South End Chocolate for a cup of coffee, you will see our Lincoln and Dixie Highway historical marker. My Progress Club ladies were involved with this as well. Both sides tell the history of this, that this is the intersection of Lincoln and Dixie highways, which Carl Fisher was in charge of both. Lincoln Highway's newest attraction, heading toward New Carlisle on US 20 and 31, west of the airport, on the south side. We have the new South Bend Chocolate Candy Factory. As you drive in the parking lot, over on the left is our newest attraction, the Indiana Dinosaur Museum, which the owner has had down at the coffee shop downtown South Bend. But it's huge. And over on the right side is the farm store. He's going to have vendors inside selling farm products, and he's planning on walking trails. He's planning on having buffaloes out and ostriches walking around, and alligator, crocodile, babies inside, and yeah, it's beautiful. Beautifully done. We were able to have part of that as our conference. Then as you head back out, getting on 20 going into New Carlisle, don't leave yet, because to the right, to the left of the Dinosaur Museum, I noticed a little drive, and I saw these picnic tables. So my niece and I drove down there. There's some kiosks stating the history of Lincoln Highway. Mark, the owner, knows that they're on the Lincoln Highway. I said, God bless you. And he's placed these picnic tables and kiosks, and I think there's one on the Continental Divide, because that is also on the grounds. So that's been nicely done. We're into New Carlisle, and as you take the Death Circle up on top of the hill, please don't look at it as you're driving the circle, but we have the Old Republic looking down on us. The Old Republic served as a bed and breakfast, as well as Historical Society Museum. They outgrew that. It is now a private residence, but we do have the new museum downtown New Carlisle. And Dana, the director, has done a marvelous job with that. And she's just been a great supporter and interest for Lincoln Highway. We appreciate that. Before you get to that though, we have our kiosk at the side of the city hall, or town hall, we should call it, which is one of the old Carnegie Library buildings, still standing. And as you drive through New Carlisle, every other light post has a banner either about our Lincoln Highway, historic highway, or the Michigan Road. So they do support us in that way, and we appreciate that. Who doesn't know Jenny Ray's? And who remembers Bob's Barbecue? All right, Bob's Barbecue. And on that property also was the Riley's Camp of cabins, established in 1927. Only served an extra large T-bone steak with fresh pie. But Wiley's Camp, with 8 cabins, a water pump, picnic tables, and separate privies for men and women, were on the property. Jenny Ray now runs it, owns the restaurant, and delicious pies and homemade jams. I always go in and buy a jar of jams from her. We're into LaPorte. The kiosk on the left was built and put together by 2 of our former members, now deceased, Fred and Jim. The one side tells the history of LaPorte, and the other is of the Lincoln Highway. And this stands in front of the railroad depot station, which at that time was the visitor center. We need to check on that, if it still is. We come back into LaPorte County Museum, and there's my dear friend Bruce Johnson, also a retired teacher and a beautiful singer. And traveler, world traveler. He goes to places he shouldn't go. I say prayers every night when he travels. But another, what do we have standing behind Bruce? Sorry. What's
The banner.
the banner? Control Station banner. We have 5 of those throughout. Westville, Abraham Lincoln's funeral train has a marker explaining when that came through Westville. And we have members of Indiana Group living at this corner near Old 20 of the bridge. And we had our pictures taken during our conference. People would drive their car up, and the photographer would be right there showing our pictures in our car driving through the bridge. Also with that, I wanted to mention Burma's Shave sign. We remember those, okay? I looked it up. One is saying, shaving brushes, you'll soon see them on a shelf in some museum. Shave. Bill, do you have any?
You'll have to ask the curator.
It goes on a shelf, cousin Jennifer. All right, the Burma Shave. I love the poetry on those. Valparaiso, Porter County, 8 counties, remember. This is at the City Hall. To the left, the gentleman in the blue jacket is Jeff Blair, and his wife in the center is Carol, and friends. In 2011 and 2014, I always refer to Fred. I hate dates. Jeff and Carol and friends, Bev joined them. Ralph, did you join them too? I joined them in the car. And I met them on a rainy, the first trip, 2011, rain poured every day of the week from Ohio border to Dyer, the Illinois border. They walked through that whole week. They stayed at hotels at night. They walked and walked. I stopped in Mishawaka, got the money because they donated money toward our group as well as to Alzheimer's. Jeff's mother-in-law had Alzheimer's. So I picked up the money for him, and they threw their jackets. Finally stopped raining, and they threw their jackets in my back seat. So I was part of their walk. But in Valparaiso, the City Hall, you will see the left marker is for Lincoln Highway. The middle post is the concrete post that we have placed on the 1928. Valparaiso is part of that, so it's allowed to be there. And then the third marker on the right is the Sauk Trail marker explaining the history of the Sauk Trail. And one of the newest businesses in Valpo, and they were also at a table at our conference this June, the Journeyman Distillery, putting out the Lincoln Highway vodka. So we each got a little souvenir bottle of little vodka. Across the street from the City Hall, in the park, is a statue of someone of popcorn fame. Thank you. There's a bench with Orville, so you can sit and have a picture with Orville. We move into Lake County, where we go to the beautiful Deep River County Park, gift shop, Grist Mill still works. They have weddings there, they have a beautiful gazebo, and toward the back of the parking lot, they have the vintage baseball games. The guys come in their vintage baseball outfits and they have games there. So it's just a beautiful park. And then just down the road is a private home of one of our former members of Indiana Lincoln Highway, George Road, and it is of the Bird Home, let me get it straight, Boyd Home, sorry, built in 1865, and it's along the Lincoln Highway. And he even tried to have one of our August byway yard sales in his big yard, and it just didn't work. So I coordinated that. I just said, forget it, we're not going to do it. But I'm hoping to bring that back in a couple of years. New bridges, Lincoln Highway bridges, being restored, being totally demolished and rebuilt. In Cherville, we have the old Lincoln Highway Bridge and the newly replaced Ideal Section Bridge. And the DVD explained the Ideal Section. It was a dream, never came true, but we were going to have illuminated lighting, concrete roads, landscaping done, just beautiful setup, but just never happened.
The section happened, but not the.
The section happened, but the lighting and all the beautiful things that were going to be placed there never happened. We come to Osterman Ideal Section Memorial. This has been refurbished. I was involved in the setup of that. I was unfortunately ill the day that they dedicated this. So this June, I got to see it for the first time since it was refurbished, and I cried, as I'm doing now, because it's a dear story. Osterman was our field secretary of the Lincoln Highway. He died, unfortunately, in an automobile accident in Tammy, Iowa. But this memorial honors him. The plaques memorize the Sauk Trail, the Lincoln Highway, of course. It has a plaque showing the contributors that donated money toward the projects. And then we have the two kiosks on the side, tells the history. We have a concrete post over here on the left. It's a beautiful place, but do not, and we warn people, do not stop on US 30 to get out, take a picture of this. We have provided, you have to walk, there's a nice walkway, but there's a parking lot that you can park down and walk to the memorial. We come to Little Dyer, Indiana, has a beautiful historical museum there, great supporters. We've had many chapter meetings there, and planning committee for the memorial were there. They have a brand new mural on Lincoln Highway history. And then we come to the state line marker. And in 1928, as your paper shows on your chair, the Lincoln Highway route in Indiana was shortened and marked with the concrete posts. And it gives you the towns of that. So maybe it will be another gallery talk down the road. We will do another travel adventure. The journey is the destination, but it is not just a blue line. Thank you